All right, I will say good morning, everyone. Let us begin by thanking our sponsors, to thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors now for the month of Shvat. Mrs. Bracha Strimber, in memory of her husband, Avi Strimber, Avraham ben Kallman, Eliazer Halevi, Zichron Livracha. We hope that on the merit of our TALMUD Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah, and the family a nechama. And we thank Avi Tobias for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this month in appreciation for the daf. And of course, Hakar Satov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the beautiful Torah that He has given us. Our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Moshe Ann Ellen Gavant, in gratitude to the Daf Yomi chevra. It's beautiful on their encouragement and enthusiasm as we begin the third year, the solar year of the Daf Yomi cycle today. Pretty incredible. Just 4.5 more years to go until the grand siyum. And Meretz Hashem, right around the corner. Thank you, Dr. Gavant, for the beautiful chizuk. All right, well, so with that, let us begin. We have a beautiful, Megillah is just great. Everything is great. All of Torah is great. So we'll say, so here we have, remember again, today's daf is Chaf Dalid 24. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis. I believe we left off Ve'ein Mezamnin. Yeah, that's where we left off. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 lines up from the bottom. So let's remember again, we had a very exciting Mishnah yesterday that spoke all about the things you cannot do without a minyan. So you can't bench using the name of Hashem with less than 10 people. So the Gemara says, because we'll say the idea over here is, since you want to use the name of Hashem to go ahead and use Nevarech Leilokenu, let us bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not appropriate to do that with less than 10. V'karkos, and ultimate tisha v'koin v'adam kiyotzebayin. I will say, so remember again, if I want to redeem land from Hekdesh, or for that matter again, a person wants to pledge their value to the Beis HaMikdash, that also requires 10 people. But remember again, that 10, interestingly enough, needs one kohen, and 9 other people. So says the Gemara, Minahani, from where do we know this? Says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Asara Kohanim Ksuvim B'Parsha. This is very interesting. The Torah writes kohen 10 times. 10 times in the Parsha. Look at Rashi. Yud Kohanim Ksuvim, the Parshas Hekdeshos, Shlosha Be'erchin, Ushlosha Be'behema, Va'arba Be'karkos. Shabbos say, this is interesting. The word Kohen is written 10 times in the section that speaks about valuations, right? Pledging values or pledging items to the Beis HaMikdash. So I'll say, so what do I do with 10 mentions of Kohanim? So watch this. So the Gemara says, Chad L'gufei. So one is to teach you that a Kohen himself needs to be part of the valuation process. That's number one. Chad L'gufei. V'chad v'idach havi miyut achar miyut. They will say, this is fascinating. They will say, there's a concept that sometimes when the Torah says something once, the idea of stating it once is there to create a rule. When the Torah mentions something multiple times, when the Torah says something specific multiple times, that could be called a miyut achar miyut, an exclusionary phrase after an exclusionary phrase. Now, that's one of the exegetical principles. What happens after you have a miyut achar miyut? Ve'in miyut achar miyut ela l'rabos. So this is very interesting. So when you have one exclusionary phrase, that comes to create a rule. When you have the same exclusionary phrase written multiple times, that comes to include, not to exclude. So therefore, again, I both say, I have one mention of coin that teaches me you need a coin to be part of every valuation process. So what do the other 9 come to teach me? That's a miyut achar miyut, and miyut achar miyut is the rabos, to teach you what? Tisha Yisraelim b'chad kohen. So it's coming to teach me that you need one kohen, but you also need 9 Yisraelim. 9 Yisraelim. I don't know, how do you know that it means 1 Kohen and 9 Yisraelim? Maybe it means 5 Kohanim and 5 Yisraelim, to which the Gemara says, Kasha. Really, it's a Kasha. So we'll say, the way the Halacha ultimately understands this is, for any evaluation process, you need at least 1 Kohen. You want to have more Kohanim, less Kohanim, that's your business. But at the end of the day, for any valuation process, you want to redeem land from the Beis HaMikdash, you want to evaluate a person because they pledged their value to the Beis HaMikdash, that process requires the involvement of at least one Kohen. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, Va'adam ki yotzei bahen. So Adam mi kadosh, could a person become kadosh? Rabbi Avo, so we'll say, by the way, what a profound question the Gemara is asking. Va'adam mi kadosh, right? Ultimately, again, could a person become kadosh? And I'll say, of course, the answer to that is absolutely. To which the Gemara, some Rabbi Avo, ba'omer demei alai. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a situation where a person is pledging his value. In other words, as opposed to real estate, which can be given to the Beis HaMikdash, and as opposed to livestock, which can be given to the Beis HaMikdash. Of course, a person himself cannot be pledged to the Beis HaMikdash. So we speak about a person being pledged. What we mean is a person is pledging his value. I'm pledging my value to the Beis HaMikdash. The Sanyo, Ha'omer Dimei Alai, if a person says, my value is upon me, Shamin Oso, Ke'eved. Ultimately, we evaluate them like a servant. In other words, we both say, how do you determine the value of a person? Right? So there's actually two different ways to do this. Interestingly enough, a person could go out and say, Erki Alai, person, that's an erech vow. We both say, what happens in an erech vow? Remember again, we've learned this before. What's an erech vow? There, the Torah gives objective categories, right? If you're a male between the ages of 20 and 60, your value is this. A woman between the ages of... And that's independent of who I am. Those are just, but that's an erech vow. If a person says a different kind of, as a person pledges their value, dimei alai, I pledge my value. What's my value? Well, my value is really determined by how much I could produce. So therefore, I'm almost valued like a servant. If I were to be sold as a servant, as a laborer, how much money would I fetch on the open market? So that's a valuation process. That's what the Mishnah is referring to over here. And I've also listened to this. Ve'eved is kish lekarkos. An eved is compared to karka. Right? An eved is compared to karka. D'chsiv v'snachaltem osam lebnechem acharechem la reshes achuza. Literally, again, by an eved kanani. An eved kanani is passed on in inheritance, just like real estate. And I both say, what did we just get finished saying? Real estate, valuation of real estate requires what? 10 people. One of them must be a Kohen. The other 9 can be Yisraelim. Avadim are compared to Karka, and therefore when I say Dimei Alai, I pledge my value, I am valuated like an Eved. And therefore, again, the process for creating my valuation is also a minion, one of whom must be a Kohen, the rest can be Yisraelim. I'll say, beautiful. That brings to a conclusion the Sugya. Mishnah. Hakori b'Torah lo yivchos mishlosha psukim. When you read from we've already seen this concept before. When you read from the Torah, you cannot read less than 3 psukim. Well, we've already established that an aliyah can never be less than 3 psukim. V'lo yikru l'metorgman yosei pasechan. I will say, one of the most interesting things that they had in the times of the Mishnah was the Torgaman. I mentioned this before. The Torgaman's job was literally to have Kriyas HaTorah, and if you could imagine like a human art scroll, right? So someone is up there, right? The Baal Koreh reads the pasuk, and the Torgaman explains it. And I will say it's not just a translation. To be clear, not just a translation, an explanation. Because understand, we mentioned this before a few days ago. For the masses, Kriyas HaTorah is often when they got their Torah education. Right, so you came to shul through Kriyas HaTorah. So again, we kind of have, sometimes we have this, it's human nature to always glorify the past and extol the past and kind of create some type of idyllic picture. Everybody was a Talmud Chacham and everyone knew everything. I would say it's only that we live in a time where knowledge is accessible to anyone and everyone. That is an unprecedented reality, an incredible bracha in the times that we live in. But again, in times of the Mishnah, if you were just a common person, you came to shul, you listened to Kriyas HaTorah, the Torgaman did his thing, and that's how you learned. That was the job of the Torgaman. So listen to this. So we'll say the idea is when the Baal Koreh is reading, if there's a Torgaman, you don't read more than one pasuk at a time. Now, what's the logic behind that? Because Rashi says, "Shelo yitem mitorgaman min hamatagim alpeh." You don't want the Torgaman to make a mistake. See, so if you read to him too many psukim at a time, he's going to get confused, maybe rush through it. So, listen to this. This was Kriyas HaTorah in yesteryear, right? Kriyas HaTorah, that literally, again, they were going ahead and reading one pasuk at a time. The Torgaman does his thing, does his translation. It's incredible. No, what I will point out, by the way, is you also see something very interesting. there were different communities that only finished the Torah once every 3 years, which is fascinating to see. If you kind of marry these concepts a little bit, it begins to make a lot of sense. Because if you've got a Torah up there, both say, can you imagine that Shabbos when there's a Torah and it's a double parsha, right? I'm telling you, everybody's davening Hashkawa that minyan, right? That Shabbos, right? I'm just pointing out, you begin to see how so many of these practices may begin. So therefore, again, maybe finishing the Torah once every 3 years and dividing up the parashios in much smaller chunks. Okay, in any event, the point over here is, if you have a Torah, you don't read more than one pasuk at a time. Top of Chav Dalid, u'benavi shlosha. I will say in Navi, you can read up to 3 psukim at a time. In other words, if you have a Torah there, and the Torah is translating the Haftorah or Navi, you can read even more psukim. Why? I will say, on a simple level, if the Torah makes a mistake by his translation or explanation of Navi, what do we say? It's okay. In other words, because I will say, first, it's not that we don't care about Navi, chas v'shalom. It's that we're not learning halacha from Navi. We're not learning mitzvos from Navi. So again, might a person get a wrong explanation on a historical fact? It's possible. You might get a misunderstanding of Jewish history. But l'maisa, we're not concerned that a person is going to walk away with an erroneous understanding of halacha, of a mitzvah. So therefore, again, shalosh parshios koren echad. Benavi shlosha. Hayu shloshtan shalosh parshios. If ultimately, again, I will say, we'll discuss this idea. If you have 3 psukim, which themselves are 3 parshios. In other words, let's say this is in Navi. In Navi, let's say you have 3 psukim, which are 3 different topics. That's really what it means. 3 consecutive psukim that are really 3 different topics. Then even in Navi, koren echad echad. In other words, also, what we just got finished saying is like this. When you're reading Torah, so you should, the Baal Korah should read 1 pasuk at a time. Give the Torgamon a chance to translate each pasuk individually. When you're reading Navi, you could even go ahead and read 3 psukim at a time. Fine. Right? However, in Navi, if you have 3 consecutive psukim, there are 3 different topics, you really should read those 1 at a time. Because since they're 3 independent topics, even though they're consecutive psukim, we'll see an example of that. Halacha l'maisa, you want to give the Torgamon the opportunity to translate each of them, to explain each of them independently. Good, medalgim Navi, medalgim Torah. You can go ahead and skip in Navi, right, from one parsha to another parsha, but you can't go ahead and skip in Torah. So we'll say, so what this idea is, you can't roll the scroll in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah, but you can roll the scroll in the middle of reading Nevi'im. Now we'll say, now why is that? Now look at Rashi, this is fascinating. Ve'in medalgin b'Torah, shashomea es hakofetz mimakom l'makom, ein libo miyushav l'shma. We'll say this is fascinating. Rashi says, because if I'm in the audience, I'm in shul, I'm in the minyan, and the Baal Koreh is there rolling the Torah, what's going to happen? He says, ein libo miyushav l'shma. My mind's not settled to listen. I will say, what a profound Rashi. Rashi is explaining that what? People are easily distracted. People are easily distracted. So if you start rolling, that distracts people. I will say, remember again, what are people listening to the Torah with? It's Baal Peh, right? They're listening. So in order to listen and people be able to ingest the information properly, their minds have to be settled. Even the smallest distraction has the ability to throw people off. I will say, it's such a profound yisod. And by the way, I just want to point out, isn't it amazing, the notion of people getting distracted, right? And therefore not focusing on learn, not focusing on Kriyas. So, we think like that's a new thing since the invention of the smartphone, right? We think like we're the first people to ever be distracted by something. But it's amazing. Now we have an incredibly difficult time staying on task and paying attention to things, because we are generally distracted with technology and with everything. But I'm just pointing out, the problem is not a new one. Having people remain focused has always been, it's human nature. We just get easily, our attention is drawn elsewhere. So therefore, again, the Mishnah says, don't start rolling the Torah, because you're going to go ahead and distract people. Incredible. So I will say, how much can you skip in Navi? It's very interesting. You could skip we'll say, here's the chap. So in other words, just play this out. The Baal Korah reads the pasuk. The Torah is giving his explanation. You can roll. Now remember again, they're reading Nevi'im from a scroll. from a scroll. One day I hope in your session of the shul we're going to start this. So beautiful to learn Torah from a scroll, to have Nevi'im from a scroll. And even, so remember, not good for the Baal Torah, but, good for me. So I'll just point out something very interesting. So what they would do is, so Baal Koreh read the pasuk, Targuman gives his explanation. Essentially the Mishnah says, Baal Koreh, you could roll as far as you want the Nevi'im, as long as you get to your desired location before the Targuman finishes his explanation. In other words, there can't be a pause because you're rolling. There can't be a pause. So you could roll as far as you want, as long as you get to the desired destination, Nevi'im, before the Targuman finishes his explanation. It's beautiful. So it says the Gemara, Hani Gimel Psukim Keneged Mi. So we'll say, so we said you can't read less than 3 Psukim in Aliyah in the Torah. So why 3 Psukim? Rabbi Keneged Torah Nevi'im, Ksivim, Tanakh. 3 Psukim corresponding to Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Beautiful. V'lo yikra l'm Targuman Yosef pasuk echad, u'benavi Gimel Psukim, v'im hayu shloshtan shalosh parshas Koreh echad. Next thing in the Mishnah. Right? If you're reading the Torah, you can't read more than one pasuk at a time for the Targuman. In Navi, you can read up to 3 psukim at a time. However, if 3 psukim are 3 independent topics, you can only read them one at a time. So the Gemara says, what's an example of 3 psukim in Navi? There are 3 different topics. So I will say, the Gemara says you could find it in Yeshaya, Perek Nun Beis, Psukim Gimel, Dalid, and Hey. There are three consecutive psukim, but actually 3 different topics. Ki ka amar Hashem chinam nimkartem, ki ka amar Hashem Elokim Mitzrayim yarat imi barishona, va'ata mali po ne'um Hashem. Good, I will say just 3 examples, even though again, 3 different psukim, 3 different topics. Medalgim in Navi, medalgim in Torah. You could skip in Navi, but you can't skip in Torah. So I'll say, let's analyze this. Or minhi, so the Gemara says, is that really true that you can't skip in Torah? So the Gemara says, Korei acharemos v'ach bi'asar. So I'll say, here's the issue. The Gemara says, Rashi says over here, look at Rashi, Korei, koin gadol acharemos v'yom kippurim, mishnim meseches yuma, v'ach ba'asar l'chodesh, v'yesh kan dilog, V'ach bi'asar l'chodesh. V'yesh kan dilog de parshas ach bi'asar l'chodesh hashvi b'parshas emor ala kohanim. So we'll say, listen to this. The Mishnah Maseches Yuma says that on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol does Kriyas HaTorah in the Beis HaMikdash. And what does he read in the Beis HaMikdash? He goes from parshas Achremos to parshas Emor. Now I will say, that's skipping. Yet the Mishnah said there is no skipping by Torah, only by Navi. So what's going on over here? I have a hakam dalik. The Kohen Gadol is skipping in the Kriya on Yom Kippur. Amar Abaye lo kashya, kan b'chtesh yivsok ha-Targuman, kan b'chtesh lo yivsok ha-Targuman. So Rabbi Abaye is an interesting answer. Abaye says, no. You can skip as long as what? You get to where you want to skip to before the Targuman finished his explanation. Before he finished his explanation, the Gemara said, 1 second. But we gave that explanation. But that explanation was given for what? For Navi. We remember also, what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said in Torah, you can't skip at all. In Navi you could skip, but you could only skip if you could get to your desired destination before the Targuman finishes his explanation. V'alakatani medalgin benavi, vein medalgin b'Torah. Vad kamahu medalik ad kadesh lo yivsok ha-Targuman. Michlal de b'Torah klal lo. Both sides from the Mishnah makes it sound like in Torah you're not allowed to skip at all. Even Navi, where you're allowed to skip, the limitation was you could skip as much as you need as long as you could get to where you need to get to before the Targuman finishes. But the Mishnah was quite explicit in teaching me that in Torah I can't skip at all. So once again, how is the Kohen Gadol able to go ahead and skip around on Yom Kippur? To which the Gemara says, Amar Abaye lo kashya, kan be'inyan echad, kan b'shtei inyanos. So what's very interesting? Abaye gives another answer. Abaye says, no. When can't you skip in Torah? You can't skip from one topic to another topic. But in the same topic, you're allowed to skip. And again, but even then, even in one topic, when you're allowed to skip, right, what do you have to do? You have to make sure that what? That you get from location A to location B before the Targuman finishes his explanations. So also take a look at Rashi. Be'inyan echad, sheshnei medabrim b'davar echad, ve'ein kan tiruf hadas. Remember again, the whole issue we saw before of skipping is a concern of a lapse in concentration of those in attendance. Abaye says, when is there a lapse of concentration? When you are going from one topic to another topic. But if halacha l'maisa, you are going ahead and staying on topic, just going from one location to another, there's nobody calls tiraf hadas. There's no lapse of concentration. Rashi says, Hilchach kilo mafsik torgaman medaleg sharishnei be'inyan yom kippurim medabrim umas. Isn't the tani klalo b'shnei. So therefore, both say what Abaye is suggesting over here is as follows: that halacha l'maisa you could skip in Torah. You could skip in Torah, but you have two criteria. Criteria number one is you have to stay on topic, in the same topic. Criteria number two, you have to get to the second spot before the Torgaman finishes his explanation. Therefore, again, the Kohen Gadol is able to skip, because remember, going from Achremos to Achli Asr Lachodesh, this is the same topic, it's Yom Kippur. I guess they had a Torgaman in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what it sounds like over here. They had a Torgaman as well. So that's how the Kohen Gadol was able to skip on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, but 1 second. V'hatanya, medalgin b'Torah be'inyan echad, u'benavi b'shnei inyanim. I'm sorry, Vatanya, I will say, so the Gemara brings this as a support. And therefore we learned in the Braisa, medalgin b'Torah be'inyan echad, you could skip when reading the Torah, as long as you're staying on topic, u'benavi b'shnei inyanim. And in Navi, you could even skip from one topic to another topic. Kan v'kan b'chtei shelo yifsok haTorgaman. I will say, but again, in both cases, whether you are skipping in Torah or whether you are skipping in Navi, you have to get to the second spot before the Torgaman finishes his explanation. Beautiful. So therefore, again, interestingly enough, the way the Torah is kind of, the way the Gemara is, I just want to, we'll talk about how the Gemara is ending up on this and then what the actual halacha is. So I'll say the way the Gemara is ending up with this is that you could skip in Torah, medalgim in Torah, right? As long as what? Two criteria are met. Number one, inyan echad, you're staying on the same topic. And number two, you get to location number 2 before the Torgaman finishes his explanation. We'll just tell you, halacha l'maisa, we pass like the straight reading of the Mishnah, which is in medalgim in Torah. We do not, which I will say is something very important. This is even why, I will say, even by the Daled Parshas, which we're going to get to, which we're coming up on, right? The supplemental read, Parshas Achodesh, Parshas Para, Parshas Zohar, right? I will say, what do? We don't roll one Torah, right? We take out 2 Sifrei Torah. Right? So interestingly enough, even though wouldn't it be so much easier just to roll? So again, there's a couple of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is in Medalgim B'Torah, we do not skip around in reading. So again, I'm just pointing out, even though it sounds like the Gemara is kind of settling here on something so beautiful that halacha l'maisa, again, you can skip in the Torah as long as it's inyan echad. Halacha l'maisa, we don't do that. Now from the Mishnah Masech, assuming they did it in the Mikdash, Shabbos said, what's the simple answer to that? Beis HaMikdash, right? That's always the answer, right? Beis HaMikdash, they did a lot of things there that are different than normative practice. Right? So we'll say, so again, also by Hakel, by the way, the king would skip around to different. So again, Beis HaMikdash was different. Tanya idach another brayso, ein medag minavi l'navi. So let's listen to this. Even in Navi, however, there is a what's the word? Not a limitation, but a caveat, okay, whatever, a limitation. That even a Navi, where it sounds like you could skip whatever you want, you can't skip from one Navi to another Navi. In other words, we'll say, we saw a Navi, you could skip from one end of Sefer Shoftim to the other end of Sefer Shoftim, as long as you get to the second end when? Before the Torgaman. What you can't do is go from Sefer Shoftim to Sefer Shmuel. That you can't do. You can't go from one sefer to another sefer. However, the Gemara says, "Ubilvat shelo yidalig mis." I'm sorry. Ubinavi shel shneim asar medalig. They both say, "What can you do? What can you do? You can go ahead and go from the navi of Trei Asar. I'm sorry, in Trei Asar, which I will say is, it's so funny. They always call Trei Asar like the minor prophets. I've always felt that's a little bit insulting, right? There's they don't mean minor prophets, they mean they're small svarim. They're small svarim. It's not, right? It's not so I'll say, so Trei Asar, right, are literally 12 books of me. So in Trei Asar, interestingly enough, we see this Trei Asar is often considered to be like one sefer. one sefer. So in Treyasar, you can go ahead and skip from the beginning to the end. So I'm sorry, I should say, you can skip from one sefer to another. What can't you do? You can't go from the end to the beginning. Now Rashi says over here, lemafreya. So in other words, what you can't do is, you can't skip backwards. You want to skip forward, you can skip forward, but you can't skip backwards. Good about say. So what comes out is halacha lemaisa. In Navi you can skip, right? In Navi you can skip even from one sefer, right from the beginning of one sefer to the end of another sefer. From one sefer to the end of a sefer. Can't go from one sefer to another sefer. In Navi you could even skip from one topic to another topic, as long as you could get to your second location before the Torah finishes. As much as the Gemara seems to indicate to us that in Torah you can skip, halacha lamaisa, we do not skip b'tzibor. Says the Mishnah, Hamafje ben Avi. So let's listen to this. This is fascinating as well. Hamafje ben Avi, who poris al shema. Now listen to this. This is about the person who does the Haftorah. The Gemara points out there is something fascinating. We think Haftorah is such a big kibud. Right? So we'll say, it's unfortunately, people even fight over it. Right? People even fight over Haftorah, which again, just is a good opportunity to point this out. We'll say, it doesn't happen here, but it happens in other places where sometimes like people fight over the Amud who's going to daven for a yahrzeit. People make separate minyanim, this, that. We'll say, just understand, no one ever honors the memory of the dead by fighting with other Jews. That's for sure, right? No relative ever looks down from Gan Eden and says, oh, I'm so happy that my son is arguing over who's going to say Haftorah on the Shabbos before my yahrzeit, or who's going to daven Ma'ariv on the night. There's no nachas to the deceased, and there's no nachas to the Ribono Shalom. In fact, lehefech, being mevater, giving the covet to someone else is the greatest aliyah you can give to the neshama of your loved ones. So important. Interestingly enough, Haftorah, right, from the perspective of the Mishnah, was not really such a big covet. It was not a big covet, to the point that in order to get people to do Haftorah, they had to sweeten the deal. So I say, now watch this. So therefore the Mishnah says, Hamaftir b'navi, person who says the Haftorah, so listen to this, who poris al shema, they would let him be the guy who is poris al shema. So I will say, so now listen to this. Remember, poris al shema we saw, which is yesterday, right? I get confused between Mishnah Yomi and Daf Yomi, right? We did this recently in both, but we just mentioned this yesterday, right? This is the guy. Now, in this context, what it means is, he's the guy who says Baruch Hu. He's the guy who says Baruch Hu. So we let him daven Baruch Hu. Right now, that's for who over lifnei ateva. We let him be the chazan. Vuno says kappa. If he's a kohen, we let him duchen. So what you see is we build up the offer, right? So you say the Haftorah, you get to be the poris al shema guy, you get to be the chazan guy. If you're a kohen, you get the duchen, which of course is not. I mean, you get to do that anyway if you're a kohen. But lamaisa fine. So haya katan. And what happens? What is very interesting. What happens if the person reading the Haftorah is a katan? Now, technically speaking, a katan could read the Haftorah. So what happens in that situation? Aviv or Rabba over in al yado. In that case, again, we give all of these same kibudim, but we give it to the katan's father or rebbe. Kori batorah umetargim. I'm sorry. B'maya katan aviv or Rabba over in al yado. Katan kori batorah umetargim. Technically speaking, a katan could go ahead and read the Torah and could even be the Torah. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Aval inu poris al shema," but he cannot be poris al shema. Now, the reason for that is, remember again, a katan can't do anything that's motzi someone else in their obligation, right? Because remember again, you can only be motzi someone if what? If you're chayiv as well. So poris al shema is you're being motzi people in Baruch Hu. Interesting, Rabbi say this is fascinating also from the Mishnah's perspective. The Baal Koreh is not being motzi anyone in Kriyas HaTorah. Right? I'm motzi myself in Kriyas HaTorah. How am I motzi myself? How? I listen. I follow along. Or I read along. Right? So he's reading it out loud, but he's not motzi me according to the Mishnah. That's why a katan could go and be the Bakorei. Right? But Lamaisa, he can't be Paris Ashma. Ve'in over the table, nor could the katan go ahead and daven for the Amud. Ve'in onosi as kapov. And ultimately, again, he can't duchen. Right? A katan can't duchen. So I'll say, listen to this. Pochech, poris eshma umetargim. So I'll say, what's a pochech? Rashi says over here, pochech b'meseches sofrim, befarish kol shekara of nirin. Anyone who has exposed legs. So we'll say, you know what this is? Someone's wearing shorts, right? Someone has exposed legs. If someone has exposed legs, he could go ahead and potentially be Poris Eshma, Umetargim, and he could even go ahead and be the Torgamon, Abal Eno Kore Batorah. But we do not allow him to be the Baal Kore, and we're going to see, nor do we allow him to get an Aliyah. Didn't get an Aliyah. Rabbi will say, now what's the logic there? Rashi says, Abal Eno Kore Batorah, Mishum Kavod Torah. So we'll say, because it's a lack of Kavod Torah. Going up, right? Coming up to the Torah in shorts, is that with your legs exposed, there's a lack of Kavod Torah. V'chein lifnei ateva, we won't let such a person daven for the Amud as well. V'chein b'nesias kapayim, he can't duchen either. Genai hu litzibor. Now, we'll say, interestingly enough, it's considered to be degrading to the tzibor. In other words, the tzibor says, come on, put on pants. Right? Put on pants. Right? Come on. Be a big boy. Put on pants. Let's go. That's how we dress here. I will say, so again, it's very interesting. So what's fascinating to see is he can do certain things, right? But anything that has an element of kavarat tzibor associated with it, he's not allowed to do. Vein over lefnei ateva, vein ose kappa. Fine. We'll say the last topic, summa Pores eshma umatar again. We'll say it's fascinating. A blind person, says the Mishnah, can be Pores eshma. Then we'll say, and I remember again, what does it mean to be Pores eshma? Remember we learned this yesterday. Baruchu, through what? Through the bracha of Yotzer HaMa'oros. Right? It's kind of like your ability to get Baruchu and Kedusha. Kadosh, and Baruchu. So let's listen to this. The Mishnah says that a blind person can be Pores eshma. Now what's the chiddush in that? The chiddush in that is the bracha of Yotzer HaMa'oros is thanking Hashem for creating the luminaries. Thank you, Hashem, for creating light. But Lamaisa, again, the Summa is blind. Nevertheless, the Mishnah says he can still be Paris Hashem. Rabbi Yehuda says no. If you have never seen, directly benefited from the luminaries, you cannot go ahead and say, you cannot be Poris Hashma. But we'll say an interesting machlokus. We'll get to the Gemara. Says the Gemara, my taima. So we'll say, let's take a step back over here. So remember again, the Mishnah started by saying that halacha l'maisa, for the person who does the Haftorah, we kind of sweeten the deal a little bit by giving him extra honors, right? So he's going to go and be Poris Hashma, daven for the Amid, duchen if he's a kohen. So what's the reason? Why do we have to do this? My taima, Rav Pabar Mishum Kovet. Rav Papa says it's alts covered. Look at Rashi, Mishum covered. Lahavir lefnei ateva hoil umamtsi atzmo lo davar shenu kavodo tiknu lo zulachvod. We'll say, listen to this, because saying the Haftorah is not really so bakavadik, right? It's not really such a kavod. So we don't want a person to feel like their ego's getting slighted. So therefore, in order to make sure that a person doesn't feel, that they're getting slighted, so we give them some other kibudim. Sirbo said the great part about giving kavod is what? It's easy, it's free, and there's an inexhaustible supply, right? You could so easy to give kavod to people. Now here again, they're giving kavod in a little bit more of a tangible form. They're letting him do something. But lamaisa, that's the idea. He's saying the Haftorah. The Haftorah is not such a bakavadik thing, meaning it's a selection from the VM. He didn't get a real aliyah, right? Let's be honest, right? He didn't get a real aliyah, right? What did he get? He got maftir. Maftir is not one of the 7, right? So he's kind of like the add-on guy. So he didn't get a real aliyah. He's staying from Navi, so you don't want him to feel slighted. So what do? Build him up, right? Build him up. Just give him some. I will say, by the way, it's such a good musr in life that the way you can make people feel so good about themselves if you just give them a little bit of kavod. And this is true on every single level, right? You go to the grocery store and you make small talk with the checkout person, right? And you say, hello, good morning, how are you? Have a great day. You look tired, you look rested, you look whatever you need to. You give people a little bit of kavod, you makir them, you make them feel like $1 million. Literally, make them feel like $1 million. You go ahead and you see someone who's struggling, you say, hey, I hope everything works out. Again, simple things that make all of the difference. Give people kavod, and you'll build them up. So the guy in the Haftorah is a little bit beside himself. Why didn't I get one of the regular 7 aliyahs? No problem. You're so chashiv. You're so important. You're an integral cog in the wheel. We could not do this without you, right? I can't use these lines anymore, right? Now I said it in public. And so I'll say, so ultimately, again, we build them up. So says the Gemara, it's very interesting. Rabbi Barsimi says, no, there's a concern that people are going to fight. Now, what does this mean? Look at Rashi. there's a concern ultimately again about machlokis. Now I will say, now the truth is, part of what also the machlokis comes about is, the Maharsha points this out, is often the person who did the Haftorah wasn't a paid position, and some of these other people did get paid. Right? So there was a concern that people would end up fighting because money is involved as well. My bin, what's the practical difference? The good nafkamina could be where halacha lamaisa, the person who normally davens for the amid does so for free. So the Gemara says, Rashi says over here, Rashi says on the days the hacha it's nuye leka mishum kavarika. We'll say in a case where the Baal Tefillah davens for free. So in that case, there's no concern about people getting in arguments over money, but there might still be a covet issue. So the Gemara says, Tanan, remember again, we saw in the Mishnah that if a katan was called up for the Haftorah, his father or his Rebbe does all this instead of him. Sifi, tell me the issue is we give the Baal Haftorah all these other kibudim because we're afraid of people fighting over money. Does a katan doesn't fight over stuff. Elamai mishum kavod. Ultimately, it must be because of kavod. Katan bar kavod who? I will say, does a katan care about kavod? I will say, by the way, isn't this a beautiful, beautiful thing? It's true. Children don't care about kavod. It's only adults who care about kavod. I will say, it's something so profound that we can learn, right? In other words, sometimes it's such a yesod in life about taking elements of your childhood with you. If only we could remain childish in that level and not care about kavod so much, and not care about honor, not care about accolade, not care so much about the ego, how much better life would be. So the Gemara says, it's true. There's not the kavod of the minor, of the katan, but there is the kavod of his father or the kavod of his rebbe. Oh, well, once that's the case, I will say, then the truth is there might also be an element in terms of what? In terms of fighting over money as well, because there could be that issue regarding the right to finances of his father or his Rebbe. So we'll say the idea over here is, here's what we know. What we know is, the reason why we sweetened the deal for the Baal Haftorah is, we didn't, one of two reasons. Either, kavod, we just don't want him to be slighted. We don't want him to feel slighted. So therefore, in order just to maintain his healthy sense of self, we go and we give him these other opportunities to participate in the tzibur as well. Or second possibility, ultimately, is what? That it's going to turn into a financial machlokes. Because at the end of the day, the person who said the Haftorah didn't get paid. Sometimes the person who davened for the tzibur would get paid. So a person might feel slighted if all he does is gets asked to do the non-paying things. Therefore, we give him some more in order that, okay, if there's money involved, he can have a little bit of it as well. So again, the Gemara doesn't come to a resolution because they both could be right. They both could easily be right because of kavod, because of arguing over money. Good. So we'll say, pochech poris hashma. Supposed to listen to this. Baimine ula barabne abaye. Katan pocheach ma or pochech ma sheyikra b'Torah. We'll say, what about a katan who has uncovered legs? Can he be the balkore? Can he be the balkore? Amrlei v'tibay lecha arum. So why don't you just ask, what if he's naked? So the Gemara says, arum my time alone. No. If he's naked, why can't he? Mishum kavod tzibur. Obviously, if he's naked, he can't go ahead and get an aliyah or read because of kavod tzibur. Hachanai mishum kavod tzibur. Well, see, it's actually quite a dramatic Gemara. So the Gemara says, sitting with uncovered legs. Uncovered legs is going to have the same type of status. That if a person comes in and they're not dressed in accordance with normative dress, then that's just a lack of kavod. So we'll say, everybody's welcome. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a dinner, everybody's welcome, come. But the idea is that when you get up, and in general is very important, when you get up and you're doing something that has a kavod tzibur issue, there's a dress code. Person has to be dressed for the occasion. You're going to represent the tzibur. You're going to do something in front of the tzibur. A person should be dressed appropriately to reflect that which they are doing. Summa poris hashma. I want to say summa. Ultimately, again, can be poris hashma. So Tanya, Amrullah Rabbi Huda, supposed to listen to this. Remember, we had this machlokes in the Mishnah. Tanakama said that a summa blind person can be poris hashma. Rabbi Huda said no. If you have never seen the luminaries, you cannot go and be poris hashma. So listen to this. Tanya, Amrullah Rabbi Huda, Harbeit Safalu Josh Merkav Volora Osam Yemehem. Supposed to listen to this. See, Rabbi Huda's logic is like this. If you've never seen it, in other words, if you don't understand, if you never experienced it, then you can't say it. So he said to Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Huda, many people throughout the ages have tried to understand the Ma'aseh Merkava. Right? They will say the Ma'aseh Merkava is the most esoteric vision, Sefer Yecheskel, right? Ma'aseh Merkava. So they said, many people have strived to understand Ma'aseh Merkava, even though they've never seen Ma'aseh Merkava. So in other words, you could understand something even if you've never seen it. Rabbi Yehuda, so they want to say so to a blind person. Maybe he's never seen the luminaries, but why should that preclude him from ultimately being Poris Hashanah? Rabbi Yehuda, Hasam ba'avanta deliba talyim nosa. So we'll say v'ha kamechavin v'yada. So we'll say it's different. My Ma'aseh Merkava is dependent on what? Understanding of the heart. Can you reach a level where you understand Ma'aseh Merkava? Can you reach that level? Can I reach it? Yeah, maybe. It's possible, maybe not probable, but certainly possible. But over here, v'ha kamachavin v'yada. Hacha mishum hanahu v'hales lehana. So I'll say this is fascinating. You see, Rabbi Yehuda understands that the bracha of Yotzer Ma'oros is almost kiviyachol like a berchas hananin. A berchas hananin. Right? That it's a bracha that is said, thank you Hashem for creating the Ma'oros from which I get benefit. Well, if a person is blind, he doesn't get benefit from the Ma'oros. So we'll say, using the same logic according to Rabbi Yehuda, right? A blind person also wouldn't say what? Pokeach ivrim. He wouldn't say Pokeach ivrim because he's blind. He's blind. It's not true for him. So Rabbi Yehuda understands that all of these brachos, which speak about the things that Hashem make for us, if experientially you don't have that, then you don't say the bracha. So we'll say, V'Rabbanan islei hana ki Rabbi Yossi. What do the Rabbanan do? It's supposed to say so beautiful. The Rabbanan is saying a blind person does have hana from the luminaries. Like this. Or we'll say, Desanya, Am Rabbi Yossi. This is beautiful. Kol yoma hayisi mitztar al mikrazeh. All of my days, I never understood the following pasuk. Now we'll say, what's the pasuk? Vayisa memashmish batzarayim. You will feel around in the middle of the day. Kasher yemashmish ha'iver ba'afela. Like the blind person feels around in the dark. The same way the blind person is lost in the dark, this is the tochacha. So you will go ahead and feel it, right? It'll be dark for you even midday. So Rabbi Yossi said, we'll say if a person is blind, what does it make a difference to him if it's light or it's dark outside? Either way, he's always feeling around in the same darkness. In other words, we'll say, the pasuk says, you're going to be feeling around midday like the blind person feels around at night. The blind person is always in a state of night, whether it's by day or by night. So why does Torah have to say that? Well, I just point out, you want something so beautiful? See, Rabbi Yossi says, Kol yoma hayisi mitzta'er. All of my days I was troubled. He doesn't say, all of my days I couldn't understand this pasuk. He'll say, how do I feel when I can't understand something in Torah? Right? How do I feel? Say, I don't understand that. Okay, all right, let's move on. Right? Or is there a tsar? Both say, see, Rabbi Yossi so badly wanted to understand this pasuk, and he couldn't, and it mamish caused him tsar. Rabbi said that's a level that Halabai one day will be zochet to reach, where if I can't understand something, I feel like I'm missing out. When you feel like you're missing out on something, that's when you feel tsar. Oh, I wish I could have gone. I could have gone. I will tell you, I was supposed to go to Florida to speak. And it doesn't matter. I would have gone to Florida to bust tables, but I was supposed to go. See, literally, again, I've had 6 flights canceled. So I'll say, so it's incredible. When you want to do something, but you can't, like, there's a tsar. Rabbi Yossi says, so at the end of the day, how you see mitzvah? I'm losing out. I can't understand the pasuk. You know what it's like to go through life not understanding a pasuk? So the Gemara says, Ad sheba, listen to this, Ad sheba, ma'aseh liyadi, pam achos, listen to this. Until one time, following happened. One time he says, I was walking at night. And I saw a blind man who was walking on the road. And he was holding a torch. I said to my son, you're blind. What do you need a torch for? Amarli, listen to this, how beautiful this is. Amarli, calls man shavuka biyadi, b'nei adam ro'enosi. As long as I hold the torch, other people are able to see me. Umatzilin osi mina pechasin, umina kotzina mina barnikin. And they saved me from the ditches, from the thistles, and from the thorns. In other words, Rabbi say so profound. And therefore again, see Rabbi say, when the blind man is in the dark, it's even worse because no one could even see him. No one could see him. So ultimately, again, that's the meaning of the pasuk, that you will be stricken, you will feel around during the darkness of the midday like a blind person in the dark. The blind person in the dark is a blind person who doesn't even have a torch, which means not only could he not see, but no one else could see him to help him. So the Rabbanan say a blind person could say Yotzar Ma'oros. Why, Rabbi say? Why? Because even though he doesn't get benefit, he does get benefit. It's just an indirect blessing. It's just an indirect benefit. That ultimately, again, he can't see, but other people can see, and therefore help him as a result of the light that they have. And therefore, again, the Rabbanan paskin halacha l'maisa, that's what? That a blind person can be poris al shma. And I will say, that is why we paskin halacha l'maisa, a blind person says pokeach ivrim. That's why we paskin halacha l'maisa, because even though that particular person does not have sight, he gives thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that other people have sight as well, and therefore they are able to benefit him through their brachas. Which I will say, if you think about this, is something so incredibly beautiful. So ultimately, again, the blind person thanks Hashem Yotzar Ma'oros. I don't benefit from it directly, but thank you to giving it to others because others have this bracha. Ultimately, again, I could benefit from this bracha as well. I could be saved as well. Which I will say tells you something amazing. Why does Hashem give us brachos? So you think about it. Think about it for a moment. Why did Hashem give me sight? Why did He give me sight? It turns out that why do I have sight? Not just to benefit myself, but to benefit those who don't have. Why did Hashem give me money? To benefit myself? Yeah, true. And also to benefit others who don't have. And every single bracha, Rabbi say, because even those who don't have the bracha, right? Even a person who doesn't have money says the bracha of Sha'asali called Sarki. What do you mean, Sha'asali called Sarki? God give you everything you need. God didn't give you everything you need. You don't have what you need. Elamai, yes, Kadosh Baruch Hu did give me everything I need. It's just not in my pocket. It's in your pocket. It's in your pocket. Hashem gave me everything I need. He just gave it to you to get it to me. That's the way the world works. Hashem gives us everything. So even the person who doesn't have sight, but He gave someone else sight. And so now I have to take my sight and use that to help you in your life. I have to take my money, help you in your life. I have to take my brachas and use them. That's how brachas work. And that's how we pass in halacha l'maisa. That's why, again, the blind person can be paris ashma. He can't see Yotzar Ma'oros because at the end of the day, he benefits. He can't say pokeach ivrim because he benefits. Not direct benefit, but an indirect benefit. Someone else has the bracha, and therefore I can benefit from that bracha as well. Both say, so absolutely incredible. Says the Mishnah, both say, fascinating sugya, kohen sheish biyad mumin, a kohen who has mumin on his hands, lo yisas kapav, can't dochin. Now both say, so I want to point out over here, so remember again, why can't a kohen with a mum dochin, look at Rashi, the fi sha'am mistaklin bo. Distractions. I will say, isn't it incredible? It's all distractions. I will say, you begin to see from here, this is really our avoda. We have to work so hard not to be distracted, right? When you're learning, not to start getting involved in other things. Spending time with your family. Don't get involved in other things. Trying to have a conversation with your spouse. Don't get involved in other things. Focus, right? Because otherwise, you lose out. So here again, a kohen who has mumin on his hands, he can't duchen. Why can't he duchen? Because people are going to get distracted. Rashi says, "Lefi sha'am mistaklin bo." Now Rashi points out there's an additional thing over here. We don't want people looking at the hands of the kohen. Rashi points out over here because when kohanim duchen, the Shechina rests on their hands, and it is not appropriate to look at the Shechina. So in general, we'll say, again, this is why you cover your head with your talis, or you look down. You're not supposed to look at the kohanim while they are their hands, while they're duchening. So if somebody has mumin, people naturally look at things that are different than them. We'll say it's just the, often, sometimes when you're out, you have to remind your children, don't stare, don't this. Remember, staring and looking at something that's different is the most natural human reaction. When you see something that's different, it's not a put down, it's not this, it's just basic human curiosity. You see something, obviously we have to train ourselves and train our children in proper midos. But l'maisa, it's the most natural reaction to seeing something that's quote unquote out of the norm. So therefore, if a kohen has mumin, he can't duchen. If you have a kohen whose hands are stained, let's say a kohen is a dyer, and as a result of that his hands are stained, he also can't duchen. Anything that is going to cause people to stare, you can't duchen. Number one, because of distraction. Number two, because really we don't want kohanim we don't want people looking at Kohanim, at their hands while they're duchening. I will say, by the way, I will also put this out to the Kohanim. Don't wear crazy socks on duchening days. It's a very important yesod. No, seriously. Don't wear people wear crazy socks. Crazy socks. You're not supposed to wear crazy socks on duchening days. Right? Crazy socks, we go with regular, duchening days, regular socks. Don't cause distractions to people when you're up there trying to be the conduit of the Ribono Shel Olam's bracha. Says the Gemara, Tana, Mumin sha'amru b'fanav yado raglov. When we speak about Mumin, this is true whether a Kohen has a mum on his face, his hands, and his feet. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Yadav boy kanios lo yisas kapav. If a Kohen has Yadav bohi kanios, which also means spotted hands, he shouldn't duchen. Taina mehachi Yadav boy kanios lo yisas kapav. Akushos lo yisas kapos. So also akumos means bent hands, bent forward or bent back. Akushos means bent to the side. The idea is maybe he has a deformity. So whether he has some type of deformity, which doesn't preclude him from duchening, right? Even if a Kohen has a mum, which would preclude him from doing the avoda, doesn't preclude him necessarily from duchening. So, but again, anything that's going to be a distraction, we tell him, you know what, for the greater good, do not go ahead and duchen. Lo yisas kapav. Rabbi Yasi, chifni ubishni lo yisas kapav. Both said this is fascinating. A Kohen who comes from Haifa or a Kohen who comes from Beis Sha'an should not duchen. This is wild, right? Taina me'achi in morid lefnei hateva lo anshe Beis Sha'an lo anshe Beis Haifa. Not only that, lo anshe Tivonin. Furthermore, they also can't be a chazan. Not only can they not duchen, but if you're from Haifa, Beis Sha'an, or Tivonin, wherever that was, you shouldn't daven for the Amid. Why not? Shekorin la'alfin einin or la'einin alfin. Ultimately, again, I will say because the people from these places often interchanged their alifs and their ayins. Now, again, today, especially in Ashkenazic pronunciation, we're not as makbid with this, right? So, right, I will say, but it does tell us that in general, a person shouldn't get up to daven for the Amid unless, of course, they're proficient. It's a very important halacha. Unless, of course, they're proficient. But the idea over here is that halacha l'maisa, again, people who are confusing the alifs and the ayins, we don't want them duchening, and ultimately, again, we don't want them davening. Listen to this. This is a fascinating. Oh, it's already 6:45. Okay, well, let's say fine. We'll have to stop over here. Got a little carried away. Stop over here. It's a great story to start with tomorrow. Shkayach, everyone. Yeah.